we make recommendations, or we ask people to make recommendations for what would go into the toolkit. And then we kind of put together a proposal, and then everything that we want to go in has to kind of be peer reviewed elsewhere within IFST to make sure that it kind of fits in with the charitable objectives.
Welcome to the O for Food's Sake podcast, where we unwrap the joys and struggles of working in the food industry so you can thrive in what you do best while sustaining a rewarding and fulfilling career or business. We are your hosts, Lucy Wager, food industry consultant,
and Amy Wilkinson, food industry coach. We've worked in the food industry for the last 20 years, and we're here to share with you the benefit of our hindsight. Our podcast is for you to find new ways to cope with the daily struggles, but mostly to inspire you to work on what's not working to ultimately improve your career or business long term.
Hi everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of O for Food's Sake. Today we are extremely honoured to be joined by Susan Arkley because it's her birthday today, which we've just discovered.
Happy birthday, Susan.
Thank you.
She's got some lovely flowers in the background, and she's like, "Oh, birthday flowers," and it's actually today. So what a privilege to have
we're
you here
very
on your
honoured
birthday.
to be part of your birthday.
You're very kind to invite me.
So Susan is a product development and food innovation professional and passionate foodie with 30 years of experience in the food industry. And Susan and I met, I think, did we meet through LinkedIn or through IFST?
I think in a very roundabout way, we met through Amy, because I think Amy was going to be a guest speaker for an IFST event, and unfortunately couldn't make it, and you stepped in. But I think we didn't actually meet in person until much later at another IFST event,
right.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and we live quite close to each other. So since then, we've continued to meet up and support each other. But I'm going to let you carry on with the introduction of what you do, because you do quite a lot. And then tell us what you do now, but also like your career to date and all the things that you do.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Like I said, thanks very much for inviting me. It's a real honour for me to be on the O for Food's Sake podcast, because I'm a huge fan, and it feels great to be here. So thank you for giving me the chance to tell you about me and what I do and the other things that we're going to chat about. So like Lucy said, we were just saying on birthdays, you reflect on like how long you've been doing certain things. So 30 years in the food industry seems quite a scary thing, but I've done quite a lot in that time. So I've always worked in product development. I'm now kind of a freelance consultant in specialising in product development and innovation. I'm also a part-time lecturer. So I've done some lecturing in various things such as product development, innovation, food manufacturing, science of food for University College Birmingham and for Cardiff Metropolitan University. I'm a food judge for the Quality Food Awards, which I have to thoroughly recommend to anybody. It's a really great thing to be part of, really good fun, and you get to see some really great innovations that are happening across all kind of categories in the food industry. And as we've already mentioned, I'm involved in the Institute of Food Science and Technology, so I'm a fellow, also the chair of the Innovation Special Interest Group and co-chair of the Midlands branch. So currently I kind of divide my time between working as the business development manager for a company called Legumology Limited, who specialise in pulse and legume flours, and also managing kind of like I suppose you'd call it a portfolio of different projects within my consultancy business, which is called Foodia. And I created Foodia to kind of combine my experience of the food industry and of food education and innovation and various bits. So the Foodia is obviously food, and the D is for development, I is for innovation, E is for education, and the R is for research. So that's, I have to explain that to people because it kind of gets a bit confusing. So
I really like your consultancy name, because it's like Foodia, just like it's foodie, but even more foodie. That's how I like it. But it's even cleverer. That's very cool. I never knew that.
So that's kind of what I do now. But I suppose, again, thinking back across my career, like I said, I've always been in product development. I've worked for various different businesses in that time. So as a graduate, I started working for McCain Foods, so in their kind of product development department. And at that time, we were developing kind of potato products and pizza products. That was my kind of speciality. I was there when they launched Home Fries, it's won all kinds of awards for innovation across the, I can't claim to be the person who designed that, but I was there when it happened and it was very, very exciting.
Yeah.
I then moved to United Biscuits and worked down at the Technical Centre in High Wycombe doing some kind of applied research, but I really missed the hands-on day-to-day stuff of product development. So I kind of switched back into product development and I worked on the McVitie's Go Ahead brand.
Oh yeah.
Which there are a few products remaining.
I used to live on those when I was in my 20s. That was like my go-to snack.
It was very big then, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really innovative at the time, wasn't it? Because
it really was. And it was a really interesting brand to be involved in because there were lots of technical challenges. So it was really kind of, you really had to think back about the science. So kind of going back to kind of what you'd learned at university and applying some of that. But there were lots of very, very clever people at High Wycombe in United Biscuit. So it was a really fun place to work at that time.
Yeah.
And then I moved into KP and worked on mini cheddars and Phileas Fogg, which was a brand that I absolutely loved. And we did a great big massive relaunch of Phileas Fogg when I was managing the Phileas Fogg brand. And that was probably one of the most exciting projects I've worked on. I think I loved doing that. It was so much fun. And the factory that we produced most of the products up in Derwent Valley Foods, which sadly isn't there anymore. But the people there were so brilliant. It was, a lovely project to be involved in. And then following that, I moved to a company called Whitwood Food Products. So I moved kind of into ingredients. So Whitwood Foods specialised in food coatings, so things like batters, breadcrumbs, marinades, all of that kind of stuff. And I worked there as the MPD controller again. So kind of it was a step up into a more management role, managing a great big R&D team and managing a big budget. And we had global connections with subsidiary companies in Thailand and Australia. So some great travelling opportunities. So that was really good fun. Yeah. And then we were purchased by Newlyweds Foods. So I kind of became the innovation director across the merged businesses and did that for a while as well. So yeah, kind of a very long, varied career, but always very much focused in product development, innovation. So yeah, that's definitely my passion and what I love most about the food industry.
Yeah. And you can see how that made you very well placed to go into those lecturing roles as well. Because I remember, I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, when I look back at the product development module that I did, I'm not sure that it really reflected reality. Yeah. And it was because the lecturers hadn't ever really worked in industry. They were just academics. So it was all textbook, but you've been able to bring the real life to life.
Yeah, and I think that makes such a difference because I'd feel the same way. I mean, I left university after 4 years and kind of went into a business and kind of really didn't have a clue what I was doing. I'd got lots of kind of food science and theoretical stuff, but the actual practicalities of managing projects, running projects, all the stuff that you talk about on the podcast, the relationships, we hadn't kind of, you kind of had to figure it out for yourself. You weren't kind of taught any of that. And I know now the degree courses, food technology, foods, they're so much better because they do prepare graduates for life in the food industry. And podcasts such as yours and the courses that you run, they're definitely much more focused on the fundamentals of managing projects and what you have to do, but the relationships and the interpersonal skills. So yeah, definitely. And I know kind of when I first started doing the teaching, it kind of terrified me, to be honest, to start with. The thought of standing up in front of a room full of people who were going to listen to you. But I think, I was kind of really concerned. I've got no teaching qualifications or experience. And everybody was like, don't worry. We want people with industry knowledge and industry experience. And that's, when I think back to when I was at university, the lectures that I enjoyed the most were from those people who'd worked in the industry and could tell you real life stories about how products were made or the kind of problems that you had when you were like making products and what you had to do to overcome them. So, that kind of real life lived experience counts for so much, I think.
Yeah.
It really
and we
does.
find the same, don't we, when we're running courses, whether it's online ones or in person, is that when we get the feedback, so much of it is about actually you were able to bring it to life with real life stories and like a real empathy and understanding. And I think that just helps it land so much better with the person learning if it's not just reading bullet points off a slide.
Yeah, definitely. And everybody loves a story when it went wrong and you had to sort it out. I'm sure everybody who's worked in product development has got many of them up the sleeve. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I know it's a bit of a cliche, but you do learn a lot more when it goes wrong than when it all just goes smoothly. In fact, I don't think it ever really goes smoothly, does it? So.
No.
No.
Yeah, I was going to say, which launch was that went smoothly?
I can't remember one, to be honest.
And just going back, so let's just talk a little bit about the IFST, because you're quite involved in the IFST, and some listeners might not know about IFST. So, although I think we've had people on from IFST before, we've talked about IFST before.
We've talked about it.
I'm sure it's come up before.
But tell us about IFST and what your involvement is, because I think one of the things for me is, because I'm also a member and I'm within your Midlands branch area, I think you can sometimes have the perception that it's not for product developers, which is something that we talk about quite a lot. But I know I get quite a lot out of it. And certainly the conference that we've recorded an episode for, it was so brilliant.
Yeah.
And I got so much out of it. So for listeners who haven't listened to the episode that we did on the conference, go back and listen to it, because it was really good and some excellent speakers. And I think that shows you what you can get out of it. So tell us what IFST is, why it was set up in the first place.
Okay, so I looked up before coming on. I looked at like the official mission statement of IFST, so I can give it you word for word. So, so IFST is a charity, the Institute of Food Science and Technology, but their mission is about recognising and empowering food professionals by promoting excellence in science and its application throughout the food chain. So that's a bit long-winded, but basically I'd summarise it as saying it's an institute for anybody working in the food industry at a professional level, or any level within the food industry. And it's organised, there's a small kind of executive team who kind of run it and manage it, but it's mostly peopled and by volunteers. So as a member of the Institute of Food Science and Technology, you become a volunteer and you kind of can get involved in lots and lots of different ways. There are regional branches, as Lucy mentioned, there are 8 regional branches across the whole of the UK, including Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. And then the UK is broken up into I think 5 branches: North, South, East, West and Midlands. I think that's about right. And then there are special interest groups. So there are special interest groups that bring together people from different disciplines within the food industry. So there is regulatory, safety, food science and nutrition, sensory, processing, and then the innovation group, which is what I'll talk about a bit more. That's the one I'm particularly involved in. And so then there are lots of committees looking after kind of governance and various things. So there's lots and lots of ways to get involved. And I'd definitely say it's one of those situations where the more you put in, the more you get out. And I think particularly somebody kind of working on a freelance or a consultancy basis, it's a great place for networking, making connections, meeting people, accessing the expertise within the organisation. So there's always somebody who knows the answer if you don't, or they know somebody who else, who does know the answer or can refer you on to somebody else. So it is a fantastic kind of networking opportunity as well.
And I think as well, like the events that I've been to, like all of these events where people are going independently, turning up to an event, everybody's so welcoming and wanting to help.
Yeah, it's definitely a very friendly place. I think, that's the thing about the food industry as well, isn't it? It's kind of a massive industry, but also small because
it's a brilliant community.
Everybody knows everybody. You always, in any room, you will always know somebody, or they know somebody that you mutually know together. So it is a very friendly, welcoming and really supportive place, I think, the food industry.
So the Innovation Group, you've been really instrumental in creating the Innovation Toolkit, haven't you? Which we're excited about because you have been through our NPD Fundamentals course that Amy and I have put together, and it's going to become part of the Innovation Toolkit.
Which is very exciting.
Super exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting.
So tell us how this Innovation Toolkit came about and where people can find it and what it is, because it's actually an incredible resource.
Yeah, it's great. We're really proud of it. So I'm just going to go back to something you said a little earlier, Lucy, which was about people might feel that the IFST doesn't really represent people working in product development and innovation. And that's kind of really where the Innovation Group started. So I became a member of IFST. I think when I was a student, we were all encouraged to join it, to be part of a, member of a professional organisation. And I can really honestly kind of say that I was a student up in Leeds at that time. This was, it was a long time ago. So it was pre-digital stuff. everything kind of happened in real time, in person. Everything kind of happened down in London. So being a poor student in Leeds, I couldn't get to London, and kind of, you didn't really know anyone or really what the benefits were of engaging. So I kind of stayed being a member, but didn't really kind of engage with IFST. And then you start working and you're busy, you're working a full-time job, and there isn't really time to kind of do this other stuff. So I can honestly say I didn't really understand what IFST could do for me until I stopped working full-time and became freelance consultant, when I then had a bit more freedom and time to kind of get involved. And so I thought, well, I've been paying my membership all this time. I've never really kind of worked out how I fit or what IFST, how it can benefit me. So I kind of went back and had another look at what it was, how it was organised, and what the opportunities were. And I joined the local Midlands branch group. And this is kind of how powerful it is. In the first meeting I went to, I bumped into somebody that I'd done some work with previously. And that's kind of how my introduction into teaching and lecturing started, because she was a lecturer at a college that we'd done a student project with. And there was an opportunity to do some teaching, which I was kind of like, wow, okay, it's kind of scary, but I'll give it a go. Just that connection immediately led to an opportunity to go in a direction that I'd never imagined that I ever would go in. So kind of I got involved in Midlands branch a little bit and joined a few other groups. And I just kind of was looking around for something that represented people working in product development, because there are so many of us. But there wasn't really a group within IFST that did that. And then there was an opportunity for some new special interest groups to be created. And this is coincidentally, unfortunately for me, it all kind of happened during lockdown. So for me, it was great because all the teaching that I was doing had kind of stopped because everything had gone online, and the universities were using their permanent staff, quite understandably. My kids were all at home doing homeschool, which was an experience, shall we say. And it gave me an opportunity to have something to focus on and to think about. So we set up the Innovation Group in 2020. And within the IFST, we found a group of people who were involved in product development, innovation, some people in academia, some people in manufacturing roles, some people in kind of selling and distribution roles. So quite a varied group of people. And we started thinking about, what do we want the group to be? What do we want it to represent? And we kind of came up with a vision and a mission and a scope of what the group's all about. And we presented it they used to have a thing called Members Week in IFST. And it was like an annual kind of get together where the branches and the special interest group would kind of tell people what they were doing. And it was our first kind of presentation. And we got such really good positive feedback. And within our group, we'd kind of been thinking, one of the things that we wanted to do was create like a resource for people working in product development and innovation. So a collection of resources and a collection of kind of things that people would go to refer to for inspiration or guidance to help them on their kind of product development journey. And so this idea of a toolkit sort of started really early on. We kind of did a member poll and asked people what did they want the innovation group to kind of deliver. And this idea of a toolkit just seemed to kind of grow and gain traction. So we're kind of like, well, we're going to have to do it now. So we started kind of putting our heads together, and we got a little kind of core team together and started thinking about, as product developers ourselves, what would we have liked to have been able to access? So it kind of grew and turned into lots of discussions about how we wanted it to be and what we wanted it to be, whether it's a physical thing or a digital thing. And it's ended up being like a digital resource that's housed on the main IFST website. But we launched it eventually. We had a project team on it and worked on it for a long time. And we launched it last year. So back in September last year. So it's kind of been going for a year now. So it's basically kind of a collection of resources that are all about supporting development of new products, innovating in product development, processing. And we kind of divided it up into 4 key themes. So we've got creative tools and techniques, which is all about some of the kind of creative techniques that you can use to brainstorm and generate ideas, how to plan like a creative session, and more background about how understanding creativity and the different types of creativity and how everybody is creative and has the potential to be creative in different ways. So yeah, right at the kind of the front end of product development and idea generation. Then we've got a section on innovation processes. So we've kind of got some of the very recognizable innovation models there. A section on implementation with lots of kind of technical briefs and white papers and details about specific things that you need to know about to implement good product development and new products, and a section on project management, so kind of general information on project management. We also have a theme on trends and consumers, so we look at mega trends, food trends, and kind of consumer trends and data. Obviously we have to keep updating this because it goes out of date very quickly, whereas some of the kind of the creativity stuff is quite standard.
Yeah.
And then the final section is called Inspirational Journeys. And there we kind of have some case studies of people who have created new things or launched new businesses or developed new products. But there's also in there lots of information about career development and personal development. So some IFST resources and food industry resources, but also kind of general things about thinking about your career and how you might want to develop, and, links to other resources that you might find useful. So it's quite all encompassing, but, it's all there. It's all free. You don't even have to be a member of IFST to access this.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick breather here to hear from our fantastic sponsors. They help keep the podcast going, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Ensuring food safety and quality is crucial. That's why businesses trust Microsearch Laboratories, part of the IFP Labs Group. UCAS-accredited Microsearch offers microbiological, nutritional and allergen testing for food, drink and water, delivering fast results and expert support. With over 30 years of experience, trusted by leading manufacturers and retailers, and a commitment to sustainability, Microsearch is your partner in product safety. Visit micro-search.co.uk to learn more. Whether you're developing new products or supporting those who do, the MPD Fundamentals course gives you the tools to take ideas from concept to launch. We'll break down the stage gate process and proven method used by industry leaders into simple bite-sized steps you can put into practice straight away. You'll gain both the technical know-how and the soft skills you need to deliver real results. Click the link in the show notes to join. Let's get started. And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Let's dive right back in.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that, is it only available to members? Because it is such an incredible resource, because there really isn't very much like this for product development professionals.
No, there really isn't. And yeah, it is free. So you can access it by going onto the IFST website, where you can access lots of really, really great information without being a member. But if you are a member, then there's like a member login and you can access additional things. But the toolkit is available. I think it's called something like Publications and Resources.
Well, we'll put a link
on that link,
and
it takes you then
link
through
in the show
to
notes.
The toolkit.
So we've been talking about the toolkit for over a year, since when you were sort of in the final stages of putting it together.
Yeah.
And Amy and I had launched the MPD Fundamentals course. And so that's where this idea came from, that, there's got to be something that we can do together, because a lot of what we do is very similar in terms of trying to fill the gap in that lack of resource and doing the podcast and giving more information to people that not just work in product development. But so I know you've done, or you're just in the process of doing our MPD Fundamentals course. So we just wanted you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And how that fits into the toolkit now. And it will be available when it's refreshed in the new year, won't it, I think?
Exactly. So with the toolkit, we review all the content twice a year. So obviously with things like food trends and consumer, sort of the more consumer related things change. I have to say the Food People's annual conference is a great place, because you hear about what's coming up in the, and there's lots of other organisations doing similar things, but those trends do change quite regularly. So we're very conscious that we have to update and manage the content of the toolkit quite carefully. But yeah, in the process of those annual or biannual reviews, we always looking for additional resources to go into the toolkit, because I think the toolkit is always going to grow. We're never probably ever going to take stuff out unless it's really out of date or falls out of favour, or this, but we're always looking to add additional resources. So this is just a rich kind of place to go for information. So yeah, hopefully the MPD Fundamentals course, now that we've been through it all and experienced it, will be added into the toolkit at the next review. And that's just, I suppose, just need to make a point that everything that is in the toolkit has been peer reviewed. So we make recommendations, or we ask people to make recommendations for what would go into the toolkit. And then we kind of put together a proposal, and then everything that we want to go in has to kind of be peer reviewed elsewhere within IFST to make sure that it kind of fits in with the charitable objectives, and we're not kind of promoting other people's businesses or
something that's not going to be valuable to the industry.
Exactly. It has to be valuable and fit within the values of IFST.
Which is great. And I think that's why I was really keen to try and get involved, because Amy and I have got lots of experience, but it's nice for it to be validated by more very experienced people in the industry, and be part of something that's bigger, that also has other resources that can kind of support it as well. So we're really, really excited to be part of your Innovation Toolkit.
Great. Well, I think it'll be a great addition, because having gone through the course myself, as somebody who's been doing product development for so long.
Yeah, well, I was quite nervous about you doing it, because I was like, oh God, Susan's really experienced. So tell us what you thought about it. Tell us how it ran, because we've talked about it before, but it's really useful for us to hear from someone that's been through it.
I think even if you're somebody who does this as your day job, if you like, it's sometimes really great to just go back and go through the fundamentals of all the things that are involved in developing a product, because sometimes you do everything a bit on autopilot, or it's so familiar that you sometimes don't stop and think about why you do certain things at certain times, because that's just how you've always done it and that's what you know. Yeah. So I think the way that you've set out the course by looking at each of following the stage gate process, and then looking at each stage and each gate as a module, I think that's really, really good, because it breaks down that whole development cycle and the whole stage gate process into really kind of manageable chunks. So if you think about the whole thing, there's an awful lot going on, and there's a lot of things happening. But I think when you actually sit down and focus on one sort of section at a time, and you can delve a little bit deeper into all of those things that have to happen in a stage in order to get through the gate to go on to the next stage. So I really thought that was nicely organised way to kind of think about the whole development cycle. And the fact that it is a cycle, and it's not just a straight line, it's a circular thing that keeps on going, whether you're adding new things in or reviewing what you've already done, and that generates new ideas that then go around the development cycle again. So I think, again, the whole process works for brand new innovations and brand new developments, but also for tweaks and improvements and existing product development as well. It kind of, the same philosophy applies regardless of what kind of development you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when we were chatting yesterday, weren't we, Susan? And I was saying that it's quite useful as well when you've been in bigger businesses and you're entrenched in a very structured stage gate process, and then you come out of that and you might be working freelance or with startups, and it's quite good to sort of go back and think about the core of the stage gate process and how it could translate into different businesses. And it's the same but different, and I think it's really good to have that reminder of that flexibility that it can have.
Yeah, definitely. I think I said to you, Lucy, it kind of took me straight back to being at UB, because I was in UB at the point where the stage gate process was kind of implemented at UB. So it was quite new, again, many years ago. It was quite new and exciting then.
You were at the cutting edge.
It was great to be part of that, process being put into a great big business like UB. And so even then within UB, the different brands kind of applied it slightly differently. So it's a model as well that can be flexed to fit the brand
the
or
thing, isn't it?
the business.
That's the really important thing.
It really is. It works across whatever products or brands
and you've got to allow it to have that flexibility and not be so rigid with it, but just have it there as guardrails basically, rather than
absolutely gospel. Absolutely. And I think for me as well, kind of moving from, that branded business then into ingredients, they were very successful and good at developing, but there wasn't really a process for managing it. So kind of taking what I'd learned in one business and trying to flex it and implement it into a different business to give a bit more rigor and structure and management, I suppose, risk management of the development process. So.
Yes. Good. Well, I'm really pleased that you found it enjoyable and you want it to be part of your toolkit, I guess.
I do.
You.
We totally had imposter syndrome.
I would just say
about
that
it.
I think it's, in the way that the sort of stage gate process can fit any business and any brand, I think that this course is really useful for anybody, really. So if you're brand new to product development, this would be a brilliant place to put your new developers through this course so that they understand all of the process, and not just the process that works in the business that they're working in, but generally the process and all the stages.
As a wider industry.
Yeah. Also for experienced people who have been doing it for a long time, it's really great sometimes to just take a step back and go back and like refresh your knowledge. And, there were things in the modules that I was kind of like, oh yes, of course, kind of forgotten that's a reason. A lot of my experience has been in branded businesses and then in ingredients, not so much within the retail side of things. So it was really great in the way that you deliver the course, very conversational, to hear your little stories and anecdotes about the experience of being in retail and what happens in different businesses. And then to hear how you'd use this in your own business, Lucy, as well. It's, it kind of reinforces the fact that it works across the industry, really.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And we've had people do it that aren't within development as well, or businesses that work with development teams but aren't even necessarily in the food industry, but support people, and they found it really useful to understand the processes that we go through as development teams. So
that's so powerful. Because I know, I always say, I've always loved being in product development, because you're kind of, for me, you're always at the center of everything.
Definitely.
And you have to you have to be able to communicate and connect with people in all the other functions, because you kind of need to work with them. So you need to know what goes on in production and planning and purchasing and finance and ops and all of that kind of stuff. But on the flip side, it's great for people in those departments to have an appreciation of the development cycle and where they fit into it, and why you're asking them for certain things.
And the bigger picture of, we talk about this a lot of people outside of development can have a very skewed view of what development is and actually don't see a lot of what we have to do. So that's really interesting.
I think just picking up on that, one of the things that you said in the course was, the product development team kind of own or manage the process, really, but it doesn't mean that you're doing everything in the process. And I think, like you said, that's
shouldn't be doing everything.
That is quite a misconception sometimes, because you're kind of like, you're the custodians. You're kind of responsible for everything, and that's that isn't true.
No, absolutely. So Susan, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch?
So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I have a website, foodia.co.uk is my website, so you can contact me through there. And also, if you want anything to do with IFST, you can contact on the IFST website. There are ways to contact people within IFST, so there's lots of ways to get hold of me.
Amazing. And we'll put the link to the toolkit in the show notes as well, if anybody really wants to go and have a look at that. We'll put a link on there. So
that's great.
Thank you so much for sharing all your insights. And I'm really, I think there's going to be lots of people wanting to go and have a look at the toolkit, because it is such a good resource. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And just for anybody out there who's not thought about joining IFST, definitely have a look at it and see, because there are so many opportunities. And, I think the IFST now is a very different IFST to the one I joined all those years ago. And, there's a lot going on. There's a lot more digital content. There's lots of ways to get involved, and also some great resources there for people in all parts of the food industry. So definitely have a look and consider whether it's something that would be beneficial to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely can second that. It's great. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it, rate and review us. It really helps us reach more food industry pros like you.
For more resources, head over to our website, overfoodsake.co.uk, and join our mailing list to stay in touch.
And if you'd like to connect with us, come say hello on LinkedIn. We're both there, Lucy Wager and Amy Wilkinson.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.